Hi, Brian here. Welcome to the Angels, Modelling and Railways. Hi, hopefully you liked that little view of the layout there. Now we've came along quite a way, managed to get the baseboards in obviously and get the track down. Now there's going to be issues with the electrofrog points because I have the Caboose Industries ground throws that I'll be using on it, and the frog will need to be wired, and then I need to also power that throw switch with a positive and negative. So before I started drilling holes and working out exactly where all the frog wires were going and how to power the track in between the insulated areas, because obviously you've got to put insulated fish plates on these points, which is here, these two areas. So this one is an insul frog, which is going to be for the caboose siding, so this won't be getting wired like the rest of them. But on the live frog ones, where you have these insulated fish plates, I then realised that every little bit of track in between each set of points will be dead. And in order to kind of overcome that, you're going to have to supply power to the track. So I had a little look at some wiring diagrams and how other people had done it, and I've kind of come up with my own wiring diagram, which I'll put in here. As you can see, that wiring diagram has got lots of red and black wires everywhere. The brown and the blue are the bus wires, which I'm going to run under the board and have available for when I eventually put lights and any other sort of electrics. Little flickering bins to show that there's fire in an old disused bin, and obviously the lights for the buildings and the streets and whatnot. So I need to have a bus cable running underneath the layout, and the rest of the wires are basically just for feeding the track that's in that wiring diagram for each area that has insulated fish points. Beyond that will be dead track, so I'm trying to wire it up accordingly. Now I know there's probably a more efficient way of doing this, but the way I'm looking at it just now is I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible and minimise the amount of soldering I need to do underneath the layout as well. So every dropper wire that's going to get down is going to get wired into a terminal, something similar to what Charlie Bishop uses, where they've got multiple positives and multiple negatives that kind of feed off into the different areas. So I'll carry on and show you basically the first loop that's down on Angels Ridge Railroad Company. I've just using the point blades on the live frogs to feed the power through, but I do have two sections of track that are powered. So let's get you into position and we'll do the inaugural run of a particular locomotive that I've been looking very forward to actually getting on a loop. So we'll see how it goes on these curves. That's the whole point of doing this loop. The track's pinned down in order for me to make sure that any locomotive I put on it will be able to take the curve. A little bit worried at the back there. I think I might need to come in a couple of millimetres. Track's maybe a bit too close to the wall. You're not going to see that because it'll be hidden by the mountain scenery. But let's crack on and see some local. So here we are trackside. I'll rotate a little bit. So obviously got some buildings on there just for reference points. The Angels Ridge will definitely be on the layout, but the Metcalf engine shed, I don't think I'll be using that. Then as we pan round, there's the test loco to make sure the power connection was working. My little Hornby 040. Then we've got this building here, which is actually a narrow gauge engine shed, but again, just a building to scale for reference. And as we move around, we can see we have our first loop. Yeah, not the most exciting for most folk in the world, but for me, I'm very tickled by it, and I look forward to showing folk what you can do with a basic loop, a couple of sidings coming off it, and how to add scenic interest and make it a far more interesting layout than just a basic loop. Using my Gauge Master controller through track 1, I set up power to the front track, 2 droppers to the rear track, and a little 040 shunter to see how the track worked. So let's watch this do a little loop of the track before we move on to the articulated loco. here we go, a proper inaugural test run of a 2662 articulated loco for Angels Ridge Railroad Company. This will be renamed, this locomotive. The true test for this loco is this curve. It's 14.5 inches, 15 inches is the minimum radius they recommend in HO scale. So we'll see how it goes on 14.5. Fingers crossed. Seem to run round that curve okay. Now we'll check the other curve, make sure they're both laid similarly, and fingers crossed it runs through. Do it at a nice steady pace, not too quick, not too slow. Seem to slow down a little bit there. Point this layout was to create running shots that we'll have along the front. Obviously we'll have the scenery flip up board that will come along here that will add scenery to the front of the layout, but the whole point of it really, for me doing this, was this. Oh, isn't that a thing of beauty? I discovered after a few more test runs that this corner here was too tight, and the reason I think I made it too tight was that when I had the two pieces of flexi track that I'd soldered together to put in for this sweeping corner, I attached them at the back at the wall on the straight and then fed the flexi track into the curve, and I think that was my downfall. The issue with this particular loco and why I wanted to test it on the curve was that the front 262 part of the locomotive is on a bogie and it turns through the bends. The six wheels are at the rear of it are basically in a fixed position, and they were the ones that were riding up over the corners. Pico Code 83 Flex Track doesn't have any holes in the sleepers, so I drilled some holes in the sleepers to put tacks in to hold it in place to make sure that the curves stay true, especially when it gets to relifting it, which was quite easy because the other side was an issue that I had to relay. So on this particular corner it was a little bit tight, but with lifting the pins out and relaying it, I've got a smoother curve, and I had to do the same on the other side. Lift the track, relay it, and get a better curve. Now, because the curve is wider and pushing to the very edge of the board, which doesn't matter at that end of the layout, I had to put some more cork down to lift the track bed.
Three hours later.
So here we are back at the layout. What I had a problem with originally was here in this corner, the 2662 articulated logging loco, the 3 wheels per side, 3 axles. So one of the wheels, because of the tightness of the radius, was rising up onto the top of the rail. So I decided that the 2 pieces of flex track that were originally put in, I had started here, I'd joined it, then ran it round on the curve and joined it to this point, and I think by doing that I've nipped the corner too much where this original piece of cork is. You can see how tight it was coming in here. I think this point in certain aspects is maybe a little bit further along this way than that point, that there's a bit more room for the track to curve. Still a little bit tight here, but not as bad, but it certainly was derailing here. So now you can see that I've added some more. This is 1.5mm cork, so there's 2 layers to make the 3mm depth, and that comes out, and that's right to the very edge, maybe a couple of millimeters over and coming back round. So yeah, I started here with the flex track, I cut it square, made sure it lined up, then put a couple of pins in to hold that curve up to there. Then with the rest of the flex track, I basically brought it round and levelled it up so that these parts meet here. And then that way it gave me a far better curve, which we're now going to test the articulated logging loco on it again. I figured that'd be the one that would cause me the most issues, so we'll see how that runs. So here we go. Let's see this loco. I can take this curve. So now we have all the wagons and the log cars hooked up to the locomotive. Let's give it a run. So yeah, I would say that was a success, and the whole point of this layout was to do exactly that. By the time I had scenery, buildings, detail, and we have this flap just down here on the front, we'll have a nice bit of scenery to watch the trains run by. And when you get locomotives like this, they really need to be on the run, need to be on the move. I just felt a switching layout, a locomotive like this would kind of been wasted on it, so I look forward to building up the rest of it and do some more testing, other locos and other freight. So I'll share some of those images and videos, and you can see what it's like with other freight and the other locos that I've got. Now another test for this loop was the 060 short haul. This locomotive was weathered by TMC and I bought it from them at a very good price. It's a great loco for Bachmann, so let's see how this runs round the loop. Now, being that it's longer than the 2662 articulated loco, this is where we'll have 3 boxcars and a caboose that will fit into this siding. So yeah, still be able to do shunting, still be able to pull wagons in and out, as well as have trains running by. So let's see how this one goes. Now I've cleared all the layout of all the wires and cables and all the mess that was there, so I tried to make it look a little bit more presentable for doing some more running shots. The engine house is just an idea of what will go there, it won't be that particular one, but it shows you the sidings and the setup, and it gives you an idea of the overall size that I'll be able to work with. And I'm looking forward to creating scenery and all this, having dirt roads, all the signs, all the older buildings, cars, vehicles, people, trees. I'm going to try and cram quite a lot in this. Having done NAM 68 and got a lot in such a small footprint, I feel as though I can try and achieve the same in this scale and this size of board. So stick with me while we go on the journey of Angels Ridge Railroad Company, and we'll see how this layout pans out over time. The fact the layout is based in Ontario, Canada, it's really nice to have some Ontario Northland stock to run on it. It's kind of, I don't know if it's era specific, but it certainly is region specific. I just couldn't resist getting some of my stock from the Angel Share layout and running my J15 and some other locos as well. This one is the beast of all beasts, the Bachmann ON30 2-truck Shay. What a beautiful working mechanism. It's a stunning loco, and one day I will have an ON30 layout, but that's off in the future. This is my Bachmann Class 24 that I got from Tony's Trains in Blackpool. A very nice chap who runs an O-gauge shop, so I happened to have a lot of 00 stock in the day I gave him a visit, and this was one of my purchases. So here's a quick rundown and an overview of the layout so far. Down here we can see 2 gondolas and this siding. There will be a building in this area here. Then we've got a 50-foot box car there. And then we can see where this piece of track will go, which will fit a locomotive and 2 40-foot, possibly 50-foot box cars. Then we come down here and we can see we have the left-hand point leading into a Y, which will then feed the engine shed area and a refueling area where we'll also have some diesel fueling facilities for the diesel locos, and there we'll have coal and water. And as we move around, move through the point work back out onto the running loop, and I have 4 boxcars here, and we can see that they fit in that run round loop as designed on SCARM, which helped me realise that I could fit all this in this space, including the running working loop. So we can see the 060 slope tender locomotive there with the 3 skeleton log cars and the flat car and the caboose. So I'll be taking the caboose off and putting it on the 4 box cars we have at the front of the layout, bring the loco round, and we'll set up a train. So I've put the building on the layout as this is the muse, as it were. This will help inspire me to carry on and give it full scenic surroundings and detail everything that's relevant to the Angels Ridge Railroad Company. So here we have some of the stuff I got in Model Rail Scotland. These 2 box cars, some stuff I got off eBay, and TMC weathered 060 slope tender. So let's get this train moving. See how she goes. Excuse the shaky camera work or any background noises as I handle the phone. Obviously you won't see the train in the background because it'll be coming out a tunnel on the right hand side of the building. Train slows down a little bit because that's a little tight still in that corner, but at least all the trains are running on it now. I wasn't sure if the 120mm flap to the front of the layout would be big enough for a scenic element, but seeing it here, once you put the scenery in etc, I think it'll look great. I've even got an idea of possibly putting in a station that I can remove, but hey ho, we'll see how we go as the layout develops. I'll also be looking at getting some Grand Trunk Railroad, Grand Trunk Western stock, as that did run through Ontario. In fact, it ran through Peterborough, where I was born. I remember seeing railroad maps for that online, so in order to commemorate that, there's my Grand Trunk caboose, which is a stunning looking model and is a great addition to the layout. So thanks for putting up with the numerous running shots that I had to share with you. I'm just very excited to actually have a loop up and running and get locals moving constantly. I think it'll create some really nice scenes, and it'll let my imagination kind of flourish and practice all the modelling railroad skills that I'm developing and learning and picking up from other YouTubers and other modellers that help inspire me. So thanks again for watching, stay tuned for more, and all the best, thanks.